Right, we are about to go live in about a couple of minutes, 8:30 exactly. All right, guys, welcome. It's the first live session I'm doing, which is going to be an introduction to the live online workshop, the Berserker Awakening. I'm both streaming to YouTube and Instagram as well. And yeah, the thing is, a lot of people have been asking me, when are you finally going to do live calls? Because you have been posting so many videos. When is about the time you're going to do something with it? So there we are. I had a lot of resistance. I didn't really like the idea in the first place. And this is going to be the first live call anyway. And let's see what's going to happen. And it's going to be a good practice for me as well to start doing this on a more regular basis. So tonight, we're going to have a live call where we share a little bit about a man circle that I'm organizing to reconnect with something that we have forgotten, something Asian, something primal. And that's what we're going to talk about this evening. I still wait for a couple of minutes before we see some more people coming up, and then we can start talking about it. Hello, Fred. Welcome. Glad you can join. Maybe this is also something for you to ignite something within yourself as well. So in case you are on YouTube, you're watching this, you also have a chance to watch this directly on my Instagram as well. So I've scheduled this meeting for 8:30 exactly. So that's why I still want to wait a couple of minutes before we are moving on. I got my altar in the back with the 4 elements. And the 4 elements, it is a shamanic principle as well. Opening up a space, a safe space, a portal, a vortex for guidance, clearing, protection, healing, insight. And then I share a little bit how I came to this point, as this is not something that happened overnight, like coming to this idea of, you know what, I'm going to do something to reconnect with something that we have forgotten, to a primal instinct that lies dormant within us, that we tend to suppress at all levels in modern day life. And then we see a lot of men struggling in today's world, struggling to connect with their own essence, the purpose, the joy, their emotions, the drive, the excitement, sense of fulfillment. And that's where we can experience emotional numbness, frustration, anger, a lack of joy, fulfillment, not knowing what we want, not knowing what we want in life, how do you want to accomplish that, and we live on a very surface level. But underneath the surface level, it's like we have bottled up a lot of emotions. But anyway, we get to that. As I've recently published the live online workshop, which we're going to talk about a little bit during this evening. We have a special date today, the 18th of August. Beautiful numbers. If you know a little bit about numerology, I know someone's really, really good at it. That's number 8. It's a good sign of abundance. Anyway, it's 8:30, so let's crack on. Anyway, for those who are here already, welcome. My name is Jean-Paul. This is the first online live call. I've been asked so many times by people who are close to me, like, you have been creating so many videos, so many YouTube videos, but when are you going to show a little bit more about who you are, what are you about, where you came from, what is your story, what are you going to do, what are you going to offer, what are you going to deliver, and how are you going to organize that? So there we are. I had a lot of resistance. I didn't really like the idea of start doing live calls to begin with. And that has a lot to do with the shadow that exists in all of us, deeper parts of us that we somewhat are afraid of, we fear. It is our limiting beliefs, our conditioning. And then we go through life and we relive a program on autopilot, not being very conscious about who we are, what we want, and feeling somewhat more connected with our own essence. And there we go, we live on autopilot. We start living in the matrix. What is the matrix? It is our paradigm of our thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs. A lot of them has been passed over from generation to generation to generation. And what are these beliefs? The beliefs of how we have to be, what we have to do, and what we need to have. A lot of it has been passed over. But the question is are these beliefs, are these really, really close to our own authentic self? Is this something that we really want in life? What do we really feel about that? Do I feel what I want? And do I want what I feel? Important question to ask. But a lot of us, we are not in touch with that. We go through life, we start adapting to everything that has been passed over from generation to generation, and we take over a lot of these beliefs that has been passed over. Then eventually we start to grow up. We have responsibilities, bills to pay, jobs to maintain, families to keep. We do everything that we feel responsible for. Then men heading into the 30s, the 40s, suddenly hit a crisis, rock bottom, what's going on? Mental health crisis, lack of satisfaction, purpose, fulfillment, joy, any of that. Why? Because we need to feel responsible of everything that we do. We're hitting the crisis and something is pushing us the cliff. A lot of us bottled up emotions we have never really been in touch with suddenly popping to the surface, like we have been holding a balloon, an air balloon underneath the water, tried to hold a balloon underneath the water for a very long time. It popped to the surface like a volcano. Then what happened? Crisis, eruption, chaos, mental health problems, getting diagnosed with all sort of things, ADD, ADHD, the list goes on and on and on. What are things, family falls apart, divorce, financial struggles, job loss, career loss, we never really felt connected with in the first place. And there we are. Then everything that we had bottled up explodes, erupts. We're getting in touch with a frustration, an anger, a rage. Now, this is a very important sign of the body, and the mind, and the soul, the spirit. It's telling us something. Wait a minute. We have been holding on to something in reality that was never ours to begin with. It has been passed over from generation to generation. And we adapted to that. But we came numb. We shut ourselves off. We built armors to survive in this world. Then we get to a point where we get in touch with this rage and we don't know how to deal with it, how to control with it. And this is like the warrior essence. We can go 2 ways. Unhealthy way, express our anger in unhealthy ways, like we express the anger and rage as a sadist, masochist. And this is part of the 4 archetypes of masculinity, masculine energy. Number 1, the warrior. The warrior has 2 aspects. Number 1, we go into unhealthy habits where we are very destructive to ourselves, unhealthy habits, distractions, addictions. The names goes on and on and on. If I look back to my own childhood, I was never really able to express my emotions, and therefore I always was very aggressive, dealt with a lot of violence. I was like, I will go and join the Dutch Marine Corps because I already knew how to survive. But instead, I went to college and studied something I never really felt like doing in the first place. And then eventually I started to hit a lot of walls in my life. But anyway, or we use this energy, we channel this energy into drive, into purpose, into vision, into something we want to go for. Hello, welcome. I already started a couple of minutes ago, but yeah, glad you could join us. I already did a little bit of an introduction of the Berserker Awakening. And I was just telling, like within us, we have 4 archetypes. Number 1 is the warrior. And like I already said, if we are coming from a place where we always suppressed our emotions, feelings, then we don't really know exactly what to do with it. And then we can go into unhealthy expressions of that, and we become very destructive of our environments. Or we use a way to convert that into something more healthy, more constructive, like focus, drive, a vision, purpose. But purpose for what? And that is really the second archetype, the king. What is the king doing? The king is about leadership. It's building a legacy, a community. Of course, a king can also go into unhealthy habits, like creating like tyranny, for example. But the king, he wants to build a community around him. What can he do for the people? This is the 2 archetypes. The third one, of course, the magician. And this is part of the Berserker Awakening, because we live right now in a different time. We don't have to go out on battlefields with axes, swords, and spears in order to kill our enemy. We live in a different time of where we are faced with different kind of battles. The battles that we are up here in the minds, the soul, the spirits. For what I've already mentioned, we all had an upbringing. We got exposed to things. Injustice. What do we do with injustice, for example? We bottle up, yet we get anger. We feel the rage. What do we do with this rage? Once again, this is part of the Berserker Awakening. Now, what is so special about the Berserkers? For me, the Berserker, it was the bear shirt warrior, and we had the Ulfnathar. There were 2 different kind of elite warrior groups during the time of the Vikings. They were outcasts. Outcasts who did not fit in, misfits. They formed their own elite warrior group because they did not go along with the norms of society. Like for a lot of men that we have right now, a lot of men, they don't seems to fit in within the structure, the matrix of modern day society. A lot of men, they feel like an outcast. And the problem with that is that a lot of men, they start to isolate themselves. They struggle to go through life, to keep hold on to normal standard ways of living, having normal jobs and all of it. Like I already said in the beginning, a lot of men, they want to maintain that level of responsibility for themselves, to have a normal standard way of life, although it doesn't really resonate with them. And then what happen, they bottle things up, but they cover it up with lots of armor around themselves, not to feel their own feelings and emotions. And there we go, feeling numb. This is one thing, feeling really, really numb. Can't feel our own feelings. I had this one time where I came out of college, got in the corporate career, went to the business for myself in the internet marketing space, and eventually I got to a point where I was really, really close to burnout. Why? Because I could not feel my own feelings, but what I was doing, it was to prove my worth through self-accomplishments. Why? Where is this coming from? Once again, if we experience things in our life like emotional neglect, emotional abuse, injustice, what do we do with that? We push it away, we cover it up. And what do? We find distractions. Become more alcoholic, drugs, video games, pornography, the list goes on and on and on. These are distractions not to feel that exist within us. But the problem is, we also don't really feel what it is that we are really supposed to do here. And that's the thing. This is like for the last 10, 15 years, I've been working on that because I was really feeling really numb. Struggled with a lot of stress, anxiety, and burnout. And that's really how I got exposed to shamanism and spiritual healing, Reiki, soul retrieval, ancestral healing. Now we could say, okay, we need to look back to all the generations that was passed over to us from generation to generation, all the negative and bad things that happened to us. We all have been through things. For sure, there needs to be aspects and elements that we need to heal that. But in my case, or in my point of view, there are also great gifts, talents that has been passed over from us from generation to generation that we can get in touch with as well. So part of this live online workshop is also about how can we reconnect with that? How can we bring up this essence of the warrior spirit? Because what is the warrior spirit doing? Having vision, having clarity, is a drive for freedom, independence, is to fight for what you really want in life. This is like a purpose. Meaning of life, what is that you want to give meaning to? What is it that you want to build and create? Once again, the archetype of the king. What does the king want to build and create for himself? A legacy. But to reconnect with this essence, this warrior spirit, it's not really something like, okay, I've been through frustration, I've been through my anger, but once we feel the anger, we express it in unhealthy ways. But how can we really channel that? This is part of a rite of passage, what I would like to call. And in our modern day life, I think a lot of men, they don't go through this rite of passage, like from our ancestors. When we look to our ancestors, when kids were young, they had to be able to join the hunters or the warriors. But in order to be worthy of joining the tribes of the hunters, they had to prove themselves. And what do they used to do? Their rite of passage, they were sent off into the wilderness, into the forest, and go and see how you survive for days, weeks on end. How can you fight against the wolves, the bears, and all of it? But in our modern day life, that's not happening. What do we do? How do we find our rite of passage as children in our childhoods? Distract ourselves with video games. For example, we don't really play outside and we don't really connect with this kind of like natural aspects or part of us that wants to feel alive. And then we become numb once we grow older and older and older. So we have something that is forgotten. It's not like it's not there anymore. We don't have it. It's something that we have forgotten, and we are not here to learn a lot of new things. We are here to remember that it's already part of us. And this is part of the warrior aspect, like for both for men and women, of course, also for women, this is very relevant. But the warrior aspects, it is wanting to fight for your freedom, to fight for what you really want. And it's very, very difficult to stay in touch with that in our modern day life because, we get so easily sucked into the matrix, of this old programming of how we have to be, do, and have, and maintain that kind of fake identity that has been given to us and that we have developed based on the expectations of someone else. And then we further lose touch with ourselves. And it becomes a problem, especially when we are adults. We lose touch with that, What do we really want for ourselves? Then we hit crisis in life. We're hitting crisis once again. We're getting pushed off the cliff because what we have been doing, it was never part of who we were supposed to be. And then we lose ourselves. Another crisis. Crisis offers opportunity. We lose a job, a career, financial crisis, or a relationship falls apart. We're losing things, losing a house, all of it. This is part of the awakening. Because in the past, like I said, the boys were sent out in the woods, in the wilderness, see how you can survive. Now, we are going through different kind of rite of passages or process of initiation. And what is that? That's crisis. Crisis is important, and it's an important part of our human cycle. After summer, comes autumn. After autumn comes winter. Winter is important. It's the time to go in, and this is coming in for us as well. And we are afraid to go through these cycles that are natural to us because we believe we have to live in one linear timeline. This is an issue because life is not linear. We are multidimensional beings going through multiple states of consciousness all in once. And now the time we are in, it's like the veil is really opening up. It's shifting. It's like we are creating a higher level of sensitivity where we can access multiple states of consciousness all in once. It's like we have multiple characters, multiple versions of ourselves. And it's very important to bring that in, both from our shadow parts, because how more of the shadow we can embrace, how more of the light that we can find within ourselves as well. This is important. Because if we don't have the courage comes from core, we don't have the courage to look within, then what? We live at the surface level, go live in this illusion of this linear time space reality. But now we are opening up to multiple states, and multiple states also mean is we get access to parallel realities and past lives. So we could say, okay, we need to heal everything from our past life generation, maybe. But what if we also can bring in part of this energy of the spirits of our ancestors to feel more powerful, to feel more grounded and connected with ourselves? So many people, they feel disassociated from the current world and reality we live in. And like I already said, the Berserker were like outcast. They were misfits. They were sent off. Good luck. You don't belong here with the normal Viking tribes. Good luck with yourself. And they formed their own elite warrior tribes, and they became like mercenaries. But what it is they were really good at is to practice rituals, shamanic rituals, that was about trance sessions. Trance sessions to bring in a different state of mind, a different state of consciousness. And within shamanism, there are multiple archetypes, multiple spirit deities, guides that we can have access to, that can help us in daily life. In daily life right now, we have to fight for different things, fight for our survival, fight for paying the bills. And if we are alone, if we feel isolated, if we don't feel part of a tribe, life can not only feel very lonely, but it is an uphill battle where we feel we need to do everything on our own. Not only that, it's like an uphill battle, but it also feels like we are not connected to anything or anyone, not with ourselves, the world around us. We feel disassociated from the world. And you could almost say this is part of the psychological spiritual warfare of the world that we live in, is to create that kind of separation and duality, is to divide people. But we were never supposed to live like this, like think about the hunter-gatherers. They were living in tribes, small communities, small tribes operating together, and everybody knew their role and the place in the world. But now what we do, everybody is living on their own egocentric way of life, doing what they think they are supposed to do, based on the conditions and expectations from others and the world around them. But living in smaller tribes, communities, fighting for a common cause and common purpose is not something that we are very familiar with anymore these days. But the Berserkers, or the Ulfnathar, these elite warrior tribes, that's what they did. They were brotherhoods, or even the woman, the shield maiden, they were sisterhoods. They were operating together and they were working towards a common cause. Now, what could be a common cause? I think for a lot of people who feel like misfits, old souls, sensitive souls on the spiritual path, interested in spirituality, looking to reconnect with their soul essence of what it is that they are really here meant to do here. Let's say we have like a primary purpose in life of reconnecting or remembering our soul blueprints of what it is that we were really meant to remember here. And let's say we have a secondary purpose is to learn how to express that. It's not only to experience that, but also to express that and bring that into the world through your profession, your career, your business, your endeavors, your creative expressions, your art, and all of it, you know, that holds a part of your true authentic self. But when we are living and operating separated, isolated, you know, it's very difficult to stay in touch with that. When you are like an individual drop of water, you know, not realizing the drop of water makes the ocean, and an ocean can create waves of transformation. But if we feel isolated, we are like the drop of water on a hot cooking plate, and we feel like our energy gets vaporized in the world, in life. Well, how does it express itself? Stress, anxiety, burnout, feeling lost, feeling numb. We can't get in touch with the feeling of what we want in life. So that's the thing, and that's why I feel it is now really, really more important is to reconnect with that part of us, you know, the warrior, the king, the magician, and therefore also the lover. The lover is, of course, another very, very important aspect, you know, which needs to be in balance as well. Like I said before, if you connect with the warrior spirit essence, if it's in an unhealthy way, it is destructive. It is healthy, it is constructive. It can create, it can build, and the warrior eventually ascends and evolves to become the king, to build a kingdom, a legacy, a community, a safe space for the people you care about. And then the magician. Magician, of course, was also part of the Berserker awakening. The magician is here to channel, you know, is to go into trance states, is to go into alternate states of consciousness, is to connect with guides, with spirits, with the inspiration. Because to be inspired means to be in spirit, and this is really what we have been missing. Our essence has been disconnected from that. And the magician, we all have that within us, you know, but we were told, you know, don't connect with that because it is, you know, dangerous. We need to shut it down through everything from the powers and the control systems of our modern day world. But we all have that kind of ability to connect with that, is to move through alternate states of consciousness. Now, for the berserkers, or for the Ulfnathar, the berserkers were there, or they were well known to connect with the spirit animal of the bear. The bear, what did the bear do? The bear represents power, strength, brute force, protection. Then the Ulfnathar, also elite warrior tribe, they connected with the spirit animal of the wolf. What does the wolf represent? The wolf represents sensitivity, instinct, intuition, leadership, and of course working with the pack of wolf. But the wolf can also be a lone wolf, because for a lot of sensitive souls, empaths, you know, people who are in touch with that kind of spirit animal, who have that level of instinct and sensitivity, who feel so much, you know, when they are not really connected with that in the right way, they could easily feel drained, exhausted, or they don't want to take on the leadership role. They want to go in solitude, in isolation. And that's what a lot of us are doing. And that's how we drain our energy. That when we are becoming the tiny little drop of water on a hot cooking plate, feeling our energy is being vaporized. Instead, we realize we are the tiny little drop of water that makes the oceans. What does the ocean do? It creates waves of transformations, and it can create storms around the world. So this is the kind of power that we have. Now, with that being said, I was making a script, but I have not followed anything from my script. I'm just rambling here. So let's go back. I think I have already mentioned a lot, like what it is that we experience in our day-to-day life and that we can overcome. I already mentioned, you know, the modern day man's crisis. Why are we here? Let's be honest. Most modern men feel domesticated. You know, I'm already saying that, you know, we are getting programmed conditions from early on, from young boys, you know. Why young boys have to go to school? It's absolutely nonsense. Young boys have to go out and play in nature, you know, experience, feel things, you know, do things, build things, you know, fail over and over and over, climb trees, fall out of trees, you know, and then we need to read books about things we never use in real life. And then we can become very, very smart, school smart, but not street smart. We don't know how to develop healthy level of emotional intelligence, how to deal with setbacks, how to connect with our own emotions, how to create a safe space for someone else, how to create or build containment for someone else. We don't learn that, in school, because we need to climb that ladder. We need to, eventually we need to get the black box on top of our heads, coming out of university. That's what we're getting. What does it represent? To think inside the box, to think with logic, but not developing healthy levels of emotional intelligence. And then emotion, spirituality, it becomes something like, we have to disconnect from that. It is woo-woo. And we numb ourselves down, which I have already mentioned. And then we experience an unconscious pain. What is this unconscious pain? Numbness, burnout, loss of sense of purpose, feeling alone, unseen, like we are never understood by anything or anyone. I already spoke about it. And then eventually, how is that going to express itself? If we feel misunderstood, the feelings that we have experienced within our early childhood of never seen, never recognized, never understood, emotional neglect, emotional abuse. What do? We bottle it up like a balloon of air holding it on the water. Like I already said, if we don't pay attention, it pops to the surface like a volcano eruption. Then we experience rage, uncontrolled anger. Then we are connecting with the warrior spirit. But then the question is, how can we transcend that into a healthy way? So we are taught to suppress our anger, hide our grief, avoid our wisdom and the wildness. And of course, it is not really the enemy, but it's here our medicine. Because it is, for a lot of men, it is healthy, it is normal to get in touch with your anger, with your aggression in a healthy way, to convert that into a soul-driven purpose. Now, I've been already saying a lot of things, but how did I ended up deciding to create this type of online live workshop? Very simple. I grew up for a lot of people, in an unhealthy, broken family. 2 parents got divorced. I grew up with my dad, but in order for me to live with my dad, I had to go through a lot of cases in courthouse. 2 cases in courthouse before the age of 12. And eventually I was allowed to live with my dad, but only through a child protection scheme, and then you're getting told how to live according to the rules of the system. So from a young age, always experience a lot of injustice by the injustice system. And then you wake up, the world we live in, it is not here to make you feel safe, comfortable, and this has been part of my awakening process, part of my initiation. Like I already said, like young boys, we don't get initiated by going out to the wilderness. We get initiated through pain, through suffering, through challenge. This is part of our rite of passage. But we don't use it, we don't convert it as strength. We see it as a weakness of seeing like, this and this happened to me. Now I have ADHD. Now I have this, now I have that, now I can't perform. No. I got diagnosed with ADHD as well, ancestral development and healing disassociation, which I've already mentioned. We are here to bring up the essence, the spirit of our ancestors, and to heal the perception that we feel disassociated from the world we grow up in and create our own world as leaders. So that's really what we are doing here. So yeah, for sure, I was learned to neglect my own state of being, to suppress everything. So within my childhood, until I was 16, 17 years old, always struggled with a lot of aggression, violence. But yeah, joining boxing clubs, Thai boxing was my way to deal with that. But obviously, I was never really being able to deal with that very, very good. Also, like going into college, I was never really being able to feel what it is that I want to feel for myself. And that has become a major challenge until I started to see, okay, you know what? I need to convert this anger and I'm going to make a business. I'm going to build a business, make money, be free, be independent. And that's what I was doing in my early 20s. And even when I had that, like I already mentioned, I was living in here, in survival mode. And then once again, when we are living in survival mode, disconnected from our own essence, we lose it. We hit crisis, we hit burnout, we hit financial loss, we lose it all. But then what happened when we lose it all? We lose ourselves in order to find ourselves. And then we go through the real shamanic initiation. What is the shamanic initiation? When we recognize we were only operating from our lower states of self, our survival minds, our ego. What happened? The ego burst open. You know, think about the movie The Matrix. You know, everybody was hiding underneath the ground in a big kind of doom. And what happened? The robots or the machines, they were start drilling like holes on the outside layers of this doom, you know. And this is exactly our state of consciousness. You know, let's say we have that here. This is our survival mind, that the outside layers, you know, it's like the light consciousness, higher state of consciousness are drilling holes. It is breaking up our ego, and we go through an identity crisis. We lose ourselves even further. We lose ourselves even further, which is part of the soul plan, the soul purpose, in order to remember ourselves. You know, remember that we are this tiny little drop of water that is part of the ocean. Anyway, there we have it. So this is kind of a little bit part of my story and what I have created, what I decided to do, because for sure, you know, this always has been part of who I am. Part of who I am is that I always felt this anger, this rage, this frustration of injustice, of the things that happens to me, you know. And then I distract myself, and when I don't feel connected with myself, I procrastinate. I lose myself in distractions. You know what? I go for safety. I go through security. I go through comfort. It's an illusion, because we are procrastinating from what it is that we're really supposed to do here. And then what happens when we procrastinate from that, like looking for safety, security in a job, for example, we hit in crisis. You know, we're having a conflict at work with employees or employers. You know, we're getting laid off, we're getting fired, and all of that. You know, and you think, see all the things that happened to me. You know, we go into victim mode. But this is also the part when we feel this anger, this frustration. And then a question, okay, so I feel all this anger, this injustice of everything that I feel. Now, how can I convert this? How can I convert this for something that I want for myself? And this is exactly what we can start to experience in the live online workshop that I've planned for tomorrow. Today is a little bit more of an introduction, because what I want to do is I want to take things a lot further to start working also with the tools of divination. The tools of divination, they can be like building blocks of our cosmology to gain deeper insights of our soul's journey, what is really calling us, that we really are supposed to do here. Tools of divination, for example, they can be like the runes. I've got here one. We have 24 runes, and they are symbols. They are symbols being used from our Germanic, Celtic, Nordic ancestors, part of shamans, seers, medicine men, women. They were being used to gain insights in a life question, you know. And if we can take a couple of runes that is part of, let's say, the warrior spirit, it can be the rune of the Urus. Urus is like a wild ancient ox, like a giant beast. It was also the symbol of where young warriors and hunters, they had to fight against this wild ancient beast in order to prove themselves to be worthy to become warriors and hunters. It was part of the initiation. So this is one symbol that we're going to work with, Urus. We're doing shamanic healing journeys to connect with that spirit that embodies the symbol of this rune. We also have the rune of Tiwas, Tyr. If we know something about Germanic Norse mythology and shamanism, Tyr represents the Norse god Tyr who fought for justice. It goes much, much further, fighting against the giants, wolf, Fenrir, and all of it. But it is the warrior who fights for justice and righteousness. This is a very, very powerful energy that we can bring in as well. We bring in energy from Odin. Think about the rune Anzus. What does it do? It is Odin itself. It was like a divine archetype, a god, a deity, the king of the upper world, of course, of our higher self. It was also the king of the warriors. It was the magician, the poet, the philosopher who sacrificed himself to gain insights in the runes as well. So we're going to talk about that as well. Also, what we're going to do, we're going to connect with two spirit animals, which I already spoke about. The bear from the Berserker represents the energy of strength, power, protection. Then we also connect with the spirit animal of the wolf. Let it be the spirit animal of the Ulfnathar. The wolf represents instinct, sensitivity, loyalty, leadership, the alpha, the sigma. But I also mentioned if the wolf is not in balance, he can be a lone wolf. The lone wolf is here to join a pack of wolves. That's why I've created the wolf pack. Is to move from the lone wolf into a pack of wolves. So that's also what we are further going to do as well. Then, of course, really, like what it is that we are not longer to suppress. This is about connecting with the emotions that we have been hiding, holding underneath the surface for a very, very long time. Maybe at the top, we have levels of frustration, anger, but what is that underneath? Sadness, for example. We're going to get in touch with that. So we're going to experience what it's like to go through emotional alchemy, is to connect with things like rage, grief, and convert that into fire, drive, purpose. So I already spoke, we're going to do rune activations. Think about Eurus, Tiwas, but also Raido. Riding is like the rider is riding his horse onto a spiritual path in the outside world. This is all part of connecting this frustration, this anger, this rage into a fire, into a drive, into a purpose, into a vision, is to bring up part of our soul essence to go further. So this is really what we have. Now, of course, what we can do to close it down, maybe we can do a rune reading really quick. Maybe you have a question and maybe we can see what we can come up with. So in case you have any questions, please let me know. I'm very, very curious, and maybe I can pull one rune. Normally I work with 4 runes because they are like intertwined, they're connected. It's like a follow-up. But now we don't really have a whole lot of time. And then we can talk a little bit more about the events that I have planned and scheduled for tomorrow. So in case you have any questions about your soul's journey, your purpose, then let me know. I've got here the 24 Elder Futard runes here in front of me, and then I can have a look to see what is right now very, very relevant for you, if that's what you want to know. Also, I am live on YouTube as well. So I'm also recording this at the same time. So this is go all very, very well. So in case you have any questions, please let me know, and maybe I can pull a rune for you and gain some insights within your soul's journey to see what's going on and what it is that we could potentially work on tomorrow. Because tomorrow we have the events scheduled. If you want to know how to get access to that, I've got a link in my bio. It's like a link tree, and you see like the live online workshops, and then you can go to the page and you can read exactly all the details that I've created and set up for tomorrow. But if we don't have any further questions, maybe I can share a little bit from this page of what it is that we are going to do. But maybe another question is coming up for you very, very soon. In the meantime, let's go over to see what it is that you can start to experience for tomorrow. So today was really like a short introduction, and tomorrow is the big 2-hour shamanic experience where you will awaken your primal masculine fire and transform your anger, pain, emotional blocks into raw, purpose-driven energy. So perfect for the spiritual seeker, leader, or entrepreneur who wants a deeper connection with their soul's calling. Okay, I got a question. What are the runes? Well, thank you so much for asking. The runes are tools of divination. And how can you compare that? This is something that has been used by a lot of shamans, seers, medicine men, women from our ancestral past, from our North European ancestral past. Think about the Germanic tribes, the Celtic, the Nordic tribes, and tools of divination. You can even compare it like, for example, like tarot or astrology, numerology, and even African tribes. They have been using different kind of tools of divination. And what is a tool of divination? It is basically it's tapping into the energy field or the energy quantum fields, you could say. In Norse mythology, they call it the web of weird, and it's basically it's the energy fields that reflects back to that's what is currently going on within your own energy field and your soul's journey. Okay, so you could basically say it's like a symbol. For example, I have here one. This symbol is like Ottala. And Ottala is like the symbol of a connection with our ancestral heritage, you know, and everything that has been given to us. So, for example, if you have like a very important question about something, you know, like something that has been dealing with in your life, you know, like you can't seem to resolve something. And when you pull, let's say, this rune, Ottala, it means like something has been passed over from your family lines to you. Okay. Now, there can be a positive way for that, but there can also be something like a challenge that we need to look into that. Okay. Now, there are like 24 different kind of symbols. And what's very powerful about the runes is they are very, very in touch with the nature, with the spirit of nature itself, because it is part of a time where they were being used pre-Christian time, and what were shamans, or shamanism has been evolved from animism. Animism, it was the spiritual belief that everything within nature is like connected. Everything has like a spirit, everything has an essence. So all these symbols, basically, they are kind of like somewhat rooted in animism as well. Like everything is connected, everything from the spirit of a tree, the spirit of a plant, the cycles of nature, from winter to autumn to summer. Everything is like connected, and we're living through lots of different cycles as well. We don't like it, we don't want to recognize it, you know, but we are going through cycles as human beings as well. But, you know, we are afraid for that, you know, but this is something very, very important to realize. So the runes, it's not about fortune telling, it's about gaining insights in your soul's journey to see where you're at, where are your opportunities, where are your challenges, and where can you grow. So hopefully this can give you a little bit of an answer on that. But also I've made a lot of YouTube videos on the runes as well, which you can check on my channel. So if you want to see my YouTube channel, and then so I got a beautiful question. I would like to know why it is so difficult to find a job that fulfills my purpose and that's financially successful. Gotta get an insight through the runes. All right. Can I get your full name, please? So then I can see what I could feel for that, because this is a very, very common question for lots of people, and this is very, very common. And I've been already saying a couple of things about this during this live call as well, because we are so conditioned to think in a certain way that further distracts us from our soul's journey in spirit. Roxana, well, nice to meet you. Let's have a look. I already set up my altar, but let's see what we can get up. Why is it so difficult? I would like to ask the spirit guides, the ancestors, the rune masters to give me insight, guidance, why it's so difficult for Roxana to find a job that is satisfying, fulfilling, rewarding, also financially. What is it that she needs to learn? What insights does she need to get right now? Let's see. I have this one for you. This rune is a very challenging rune. It represents the I from Isa. And Isa, it represents a time of winter, a time of where you feel somewhat stuck, stagnated, frozen in time. But also, this is a very, very important part of you, because you need to find a way to rebirth yourself, because you have been living a life that has been leading you into this for a very, very long time. This is not that happened from one day into the second day. And the winter time, we all know, after winter comes spring, and after spring comes summer. So don't be afraid. It is a very challenging room, I must admit. But we could also say, Isa, the realm of ice. Think about the 9 worlds of the Yggdrasil, or the world tree. Niflheim. Niflheim was like a realm of a lot of ice and fogginess, and where the land was frozen. Okay. This is where we can feel stuck, stagnated. But it's also like we are like in a cocoon where we are going through a rebirth as well. So that's really what I could say right now for you. So it's very important is that you trust this process. No, this is part of your cycle, the cycle that we have to go through. And after the cycle comes a new cycle. And what we have to learn through this is to stay in touch with our own intuition, because only our own intuition can help us to reclaim something within us, our inner fire, to unstuck ourselves or defrost ourselves. So this is the lessons that you could learn here if you are up for this challenge, of course. So anyway, let me know what you feel about this kind of insights. I'm very, very curious if I'm going close or if you could relate. Please let me know. And otherwise, I continue. That's a good one. So you say, all right, sometimes I confuse my intuition with my fears. Yeah. This is very, very relevant for lots of us. So how do you differentiate yourself from your intuition between your fears? I think your fears is holding you back from everything that you already know. That's everything happened to you in your past, of all your bad experiences. And what you are doing is you are projecting your fears within the present moment with the expectation it becomes your future as well. That's a fear. False evidence appearing real. Your intuition is guiding you into new directions that are unfamiliar to you. But you feel called to go into that direction. But what's holding you back is, what are you feeding the most? Who is winning, the white wolf or the black wolf? The one you feed the most. And the other one will starve. If you feed your fears more, you starve your intuition. then you feel stagnated. If you feed your intuition by making tiny little steps, adjustments, this is your way to defrost yourself, to unstuck yourself. Trust your intuition in this process. Go into new kind of endeavors you have never been before. So let me know how that makes sense. But I don't really, otherwise this is going to be like a very, very deep personal reading. And I do readings as well. Is that a tree of runes behind you? Basically, what I have here, it is a symbol of the world tree. And in Norse mythology, it's called the Yggdrasil. The Yggdrasil had 9 different worlds. Every world represents a different part of our psyche, a different part of our consciousness. But that's a whole other part, a whole other story. It is very, very relevant, especially in shamanism. I feel lost in terms of my identity. I've always called myself in terms of my profession, but I want to change. Who am I then? Who do you want to be? Question for you. Who do you want to be? How do you define yourself? I think it's an important question you need to reflect on. Who do you want to be and become? How does your ideal version look like for you? Do I feel what I want? And do I want what I feel? This could be like a compass, you know, that can help you to re-identify yourself. Something to reflect on. Let me know if that makes sense. And Roxana, I'm very curious, of course, like if this, what I just mentioned, made any sense to you. And in case, if you want a much more in-depth reading, you can find the link in the description or in my bio to take a couple of steps further and deeper into this whole quest of remembering ourselves to gain further and deeper insights. But anyway, this evening, this call, well, you're very welcome. You're very, very welcome. Then I feel I want to be a warrior of lights somehow, but it is hard for me to step up to this identity. Maybe what you are doing as a warrior of lights is you're moving beyond the illusion of your identity. Your identity is something that has been given to you, you know, by your upbringing, your whole way of growing up, and all these conditions and expectations has become part of you. And all your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and beliefs has become your personality, your identity. Your personality creates your personal reality. So just take a couple of steps back, relax, take a couple of steps back, and then go into a helicopter view, like what are these thoughts, feelings, emotions, and beliefs that I hold on to that forms my identity right now? What kind of projections I am creating that is creating my current paradigm for myself? What kind of matrix I am creating for myself? Then, when you go into this helicopter view, through deep inner work, shamanic healing journeys, you can reflect on that to see what it is that you're holding on to. This identity, but connect with a different state of consciousness and then realize, wait a minute, this identity I've created for myself, it's not really longer, I do not really want to longer be part of that. And you can always make conscious decision of moving into a different direction. What does the black versus the white wolf mean? I ordered 2 wolf sculptures. Today, one was white and black. It's a symbolic. Yeah, it's symbolic. It really refers to, you have The white wolf, the black wolf, which one will survive? The one you feed the most. And this really refers to your fears or your intuition. Which one grow? The one you feed the most. So that's the kind of symbolic. Anyway, it's going to be 1 hour, almost 1 hour. And I want to give this live call a wrap. I started this call to begin a little bit with the live online workshop that I'm holding tomorrow, which is the Berserker Awakening, is to connect with our anger, rage, or our feelings of injustice, is to go through this emotional alchemy and transform that into vision, into purpose, into fire. And this is something I've created. It's a 2-hour live online workshop. There's a link in my bio where you can learn more. And then, yeah, I actually created this for men because I know a lot of men are struggling in today's modern day world because, you know, we live in a domesticated kind of world society, but we lost touch with our primal nature essence. But also women are warriors. I know that, you know. So if you feel the calls and you say, you know what, in the past there were loads of shield maidens as well, but actually I designed this more for the men because a lot of men are, of course, a lot dealing with their anger issues. So yeah, you can find it in the link in my bio. There's like a link tree. Then you see like online live workshops, and then you see like the Berserker Awakening live call. And what I will start to do is I do see that there is more interest, people having questions, which is absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much. You have created a sacred space here, and I really appreciate that. I really feel grateful for that, and this is definitely something that we continue to go on. Yeah, thank you so much. I would love that you could join. In case you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, send me a DM, and I will send you the details over. And then I'm going to end up this call because it has been 1 hour, and I'm getting a little bit thirsty as well. So I want to thank you so much for everyone for joining here, and we see you on another time, another day here on Instagram, YouTube Live. Of course, I put lots of online free content that you can enjoy, and also we will be doing live online workshops as well, where we take things lots further. Also, I do live online readings as well. So if you feel the call, please let me know. For now, thank you so much. Have a great evening. Appreciate for being here, and see you guys next time.